More minutes to go. Everybody ready? You guys ready down here? Yes, sir. To go? I came here at 6 o'clock. All right, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Town Council. First, I would like everyone to rise. I would like Andre Asplin to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first on the agenda is the public comment period, which is open to the public. It's for comments that we can't really address because there's nothing on the agenda. Do we have anybody that would like to speak at this period? Okay, let's move on to the second agenda item. This is the budget, the final approval for 2022-2023. We did spend a lot of time going through this. Very nice budget prepared by the staff. I'm happy with it. What's the feeling of the council?
Motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next, we have a presentation from the Bristol Warren Regional School District Strategic Plan and its Superintendent Anna Riley. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So thank you. I wanted to appear before the council tonight and also share with the community our draft strategic plan for the next 5 years, 2022 to 2027. We wanted to share this information as it's now posted on our website for public comment, and we're hoping to get as much feedback as possible before the strategic plan is approved by the school committee in June. Next slide, please. So there is a process which is outlined by the state, a framework which we have to follow. Each of the districts in the state follow the same framework so that there will be a database where we can look at other districts who may be choosing the same priorities that we are and maybe either ahead of us or just following us. We can look at best practices across districts. That's the goal of having this shared framework. And luckily, when I joined Bristol Warren, they were in the middle of drafting their strategic plan. Kate Brown, my assistant, was the project manager for the strategic plan. And we were able to adapt pretty easily most of the work that had been done into the framework. And so saved ourselves quite a bit of time and effort. So you'll see this framework probably over the next several years across many towns and districts. But it begins with the mission, what are long-term goals, what's our aspiration? And then really following down into the nitty gritty. What's our theory of action? What are those things we think will improve outcomes for the district? And then highlighting the priorities that will get us there. What you see down below, the actual initiatives and action steps happen at the school level. And so the strategic plan only addresses the district work. And then this work will then lead the schools to start on those action steps and initiatives. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. So we had a fabulous group of very involved stakeholders taking part in the strategic plan. These were the 5 charters that were set up for the planning. And there's a link there, and this is all live on our website, that will show you all of the folks who took part in the strategic plan. Over 70 members were part of the planning process. Next slide, please. The folks who were part of the planning process really came from all of our stakeholders. So you'll see folks on that list from central office, parents, community members, our administrative staff, teachers and support staff, our school committee members, and even students were included in the planning and the work done to draft the strategic plan. So the charter groups were broken up into the 5 key priorities, and we're going to dig into each one of these. So climate and culture, teaching and learning, professional learning, career and technical education, and communication. Each of the charters started by doing a SWOT analysis, looking at all of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that were engaged in the work they were doing. They looked at associate metrics, both qualitative and quantitative. Next. And then, as we do most work in the school department, we start with our areas of strength and then build out from there. So these were the strengths that were identified by each of the charters. I won't read off all of these, but I'll just give you some quick highlights. Culture and climate. We have a very dedicated veteran staff in the district. Our teaching and learning, we already have some curriculum that is of the highest quality and required by legislation in place. Professional development, we have very, again, committed staff who want to learn and continue their growth. We had 2 RIDE accredited CTE programs. We are currently up for approval for 3 more programs. And then really communication, that there's strong culture within each school. And what's interesting is you'll also see this as one of our priority areas, because both COVID and the last 2 years living through this pandemic has really created some different ways of communicating in places where we see lots of room for. So although you see it here listed as one of our strengths, you'll also see it as a place where we want to do some more. Our mission statement, this has been with the district for many years and really hasn't changed. Our goal is to support all students in their full potential as productive and successful members of our society. And then here is our theory of action. What is going to lead us to success? And success for the Bristol Warren Regional School District is that each and every student will succeed in college, career, and life. I'm going to highlight the 5 priorities. Again, I'm not going to read you everything on the slide. This is available on our website, and I hope that you will take the time to look at it and then fill out our survey and provide your feedback. So I'll just highlight the priorities and what we're going to do moving forward. So in terms of climate and culture, our goal is to engage families and community partners in creating a safe, inclusive, vibrant, and adaptive learning environment to support all of our students in reaching that full potential. And then what each of the charters did was create these objectives. So you see bulleted in the gray are the objectives that the charter came up with to work on. And then below each of the objectives, you'll see how we're going to measure that progress. We're not going to wait till the end of our 5 years to measure progress. We have some measures that we can look at mid-year every year and then at the end of each year, so that we'll report out publicly on how we're doing on each of these metrics. So again, in terms of climate and culture, we want to really create a positive school culture. One of the ways that we can measure that is using the SurveyWorks data. SurveyWorks has been given by the state for more than 20 years. It really has provided us with lots of longitudinal data. We give it to students and staff and their families. So it really allows us to get a good picture of how each one of those stakeholders views our school and where we have room for improvement. So what you see down the bottom there, one of the bullets is SurveyWorks data from schools. Our baseline data on how they favor our school climate is at 59%. So each school is going to have a variation of that because this is the district number. So some schools may be a little lower than that, some schools may be higher, and then each school will set a goal to improve their number by a quantity determined by their school improvement team. And then we'll report out on that growth annually. So that's how each of these measures work. You'll also see student proficiency data is on here. This is last year's data. We just received our raw data from SAT. We won't have it finalized until early in the summer, and then it won't be until October until we get our new RICAS data. And that will be our first set of numbers to look at what the growth was from pandemic to not quite post-pandemic, but almost kind of coming out of pandemic. Next slide. So priority 2, which is teaching and learning. So our goal is to strengthen students' pre-K to 12 roadmap to college and careers through high quality core curriculum, and then a robust multi-tiered systems of support. I'll just quickly explain that multi-tiered systems of support. Our goal is to get at least 75% of our students, minimal goal, to get to 75% of our students being proficient in literacy and math. And one of the ways that we support students is through this multi-tiered systems of support, which looks at students' academic side, but also social emotional needs, and then builds in supports on either one or the other or both in order to increase proficiency. We have already purchased high quality curriculum in English language arts and math. Science will be piloting next year and looking to purchase at the end of next year. This year we piloted it at the high school level, and we'll be looking to purchase that actually right now at the end of the summer. So that's in place for the start of the next school year. So we're in a really good place on building our roadmap and setting students up for success. But again, really looking at the data and looking at how we can continue to improve that and close gaps, not just for all of our students, but also looking at some of our subgroups, our students who are English language learners and our students who are have an IEP and are in special education. We want to close all of those gaps. The next one is professional learning, and this is about continuing to support our staff with relevant and purposeful special professional development over the course of the next 5 years. So we are going to, you'll see the objective here is really to create a district steering committee that will work with teacher representatives and staff representatives from across all of our schools with our leadership team in building out annual professional development that is aligned to the needs of our staff and that supports the work that they're doing. And then some of the ways that we can measure that is SurveyWorks actually measures professional learning, and you'll see we've got some room to grow. Currently, our staff is rating that as 34% favorable, so we certainly have some room for improvement. And then we use our own evaluation tools after professional learning. The fourth priority is to expand our career and technical education programs. So we currently have about 75% of our students who go on to college, whether that's 2-year or 4-year. So that's about 25% of our students are left who don't go on to college, but go right into career fields. So what are we doing to prepare those students and to make sure that they're positioned for those high wage, needy industries that are out there? And so currently, as I said, we have 2 existing programs. We are in an application process for 3. We've gotten tentative approval on 1. We're hoping to hear by the end of the month on the rest of them. This is a measure that Ride tracks, so we'll be able to see how many more students we're graduating with workplace credentials or college credits beyond their regular high school credits in our CTE pathways. And CTE, I'll just point out, also has the ability for students to be in this pathway and be career ready and college ready. One of our pathways is engineering, which allows students to either gain credits to go into the workplace or gain credits as they move on to college. So it doesn't shut them off from one path or the other. It just allows them to leave high school with workplace credentials and or college credentials of their choice. So that's a place where we're definitely looking to expand and we'll continue working towards. And then our last priority is communication. We have some strengths really at the school level. I think our principals do a good job of sharing out what's happening at the schools with parents, but some of the feedback that we've gotten is that's really more about around events and calendars and the goings on of what's happening at school. And what we want to do is really try to provide more meaningful communication around what's happening for your specific child and what's happening for them in school so that we can be true partners in improving outcomes for kids, because school can't do it alone, parents can't do it alone, but together we can certainly make more progress. And so we want to improve communication both at the school level, but also at the district level. You know, the only process other than the strategic plan that I really got through is the budgeting process. And I started that launch by saying we want that to be communicated, transparent, and really easy to understand. That was the goal. I think we were successful in that goal. I want to keep doing that with all of the initiatives that we have going on in the district and make sure that the parents, our parents and communities are aware of what's happening and can understand what's happening and are supportive of the work that we're doing. And so we want to keep building on that strength and really improving communication. And to that end, these are the questions that you'll see on our website. It's a quick Google form. We're trying to collect as much feedback as possible. We're anxious to see where folks are excited, where we can get some more input. And also, if after reading this, you feel like we really missed something, we missed the boat, there's this big area that hasn't been addressed and that the community believes we need to address. And then any questions about this the strategic plan. We've been trying to answer those as we go. There's a Q&A on our website. So if you've already gone on and done the survey and you ask a question, hopefully we've answered your question. But if not, trust me, we're trying to get to all the questions. But our goal is to make sure that by the time we bring it to the school committee, we're confident that we've addressed all of the major priorities and have a plan moving forward to start to address the needs of the district. After all of that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the council?
Kind of, sort of, in communicating to your entire community of students and parents, do you find that you have the ability to reach out and get to them all? We've had some issues here in town really communicating to segments of our population. So I'm just curious if you have any, if you feel like that's a successful endeavor for you.
So I think it's a work in progress, and we haven't done a good job of being able to measure how well our communication systems work. So currently the schools tend to push out a lot of emails, and then what I hear from parents is, oh, I don't read all those emails. And so each one of the things that we use, if we overuse them, then people kind of get a little tuned out. So I think part of the work that we have to do around communication is being strategic. What are we sharing out? We've just updated and improved our website in order to be able to share information in a more transparent and easy to access way. But also we need to look at ways to push out information from that so that when you get onto our website, there's a notification about something new that's happening. We have an app. That's another place that we're trying to improve, where we can put you know how you get those ugly little red numbers on your phone when there's a push out from the app. So we're looking at how we can push out notifications through our app. So if there is something happening, SATs are tomorrow, just a reminder, trying to get to parents in a variety of ways. So if you miss the email, you might get the app notification, or if it's, I try to use the robocalls only for things of high priority and not for bake sale tomorrow. So we're trying to use all the modes of communication. The only one we can really track are clicks on our website and then clicks on the app. But otherwise, knowing how many people open the email is a little tricky, because you might open it, that doesn't mean you read it. So we're tracking that. I know how many people opened it, but I don't know how many people read it. So I'd say we have probably some mixed success, and we need to think about being really thoughtful about which one we're using so that people know to pay attention when we send a text out or a call versus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Riley, very robust plan. It's it's great. And you had mentioned that you will be measuring success as you go. What will that look like, and how will the public see that?
So we'll report out the measures at school committee. So I'm happy to come back here if you want to listen to my report outs on those measures annually, but I'm happy to do that. So some of them are through our assessments. So looking at student learning and the improvements, we have interim assessments that we do at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the year, and at the end of the year that we can report on that growth over that school year. Our state assessments don't come out until the fall. So when we report those out, they're always a year in arrears, which is why I like the interim assessments, which allow us to do in the moment measures. Our internal assessment does have a predictor on about how we'll fare with the state assessment, and it's pretty accurate. It's within 2 or 3 percentage points, which for an assessment isn't bad. So we'll report out on student proficiency via those internal assessments. We're going to be monitoring it and working on improving student attendance. That's data that we can report out on a regular basis. Same with student discipline. All of the measures that we track will be reporting out on. The survey works data also only comes out once a year. We just completed it. It'll come out a year from now. So that's also data that's about a year in arrears. So you get last year's data in the spring of the following year. But it'll allow us to see growth over time. Meanwhile, again, we have our own internal survey that we use to measure. We have both those external measures to validate what we're measuring internally.
You mentioned the goal is 75% proficiency.
That's the state goal. So that's actually tied to the national, federal student success is to get to 75% at think that's too low. I certainly want more than 75% of our students to be successful. But that's the federal standard. So that's why you see that.
People would be happy with that. But thank you. No, good luck.
Thank you.
I'll probably have a lot to talk about next year.
You got it.
I'm good. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm good too, and like I said, if you knock this out like you did the budget, we're on a good path. Thank you very much. Okay, next we are up to appointments. We have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Directors. We need 4 members and 1 director chair and 1 Warrentown council member. So let's do, so we have 2 people here, and so we need to, let's do right in the order on the agenda. Is there a council member who would like to serve on this committee?
Consider it. Wonder. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
There you go.
Okay, we have
There you
Brant,
go, Brant.
we have Brant Heckert as our council member.
Set the date for these meetings yet?
We have not. We have some flexibility.
That's what we said about that. We can always operate without it. Okay, that being done, the next is the Director of Office of Planning and Community Development. We all know who that is. I can't make the motion, but
I'll make the motion, but it's, didn't we set it up that the planner was already?
Yeah, he's already
Right.
there.
Yeah,
well, just to make sure you can't run away.
So moved.
okay.
So
I'll make
sure
make
you
a
can't run
motion
away.
that we appoint our current planner as the chair of this board.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we have 2 members from the public. We have first one up is Sheila Raposa. Sheila, please come on down. Hello, please give
Hello.
us a little idea who you are and
Yeah,
why you're
sure.
interested.
My name is Sheila Raposa. I live at 14 Cottage Street. I've lived in Warren for 30 years. I'm a commercial banker by profession, working for Washington Trust, previously Citizens Bank. My public service has been really on the state level. I've been involved for many years with the Community College of Rhode Island, acting as a treasurer and trustee, and also equally number of years working with the United Way of Rhode Island. And that's what piqued my interest when I saw the advertisement for people to evaluate grants, et cetera, in that I have quite a bit of experience in the grant making process, from requests for information, doing the proposal, actually evaluating the grants, and then making recommendations for funding. So I thought perhaps I could be of value to the community.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the council?
You have a very impressive resume here, and it seems as though you would be ideally qualified to do this work. Have you communicated at all with our planner?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Wild.
Absolutely. Your desire to serve in this background is great.
We commend you,
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
and I will second.
Mr. President, I would just say that there are 2 3-year appointments, 2 2-year appointments. I would ask that Mr. Wild be given 2-year appointments.
Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is, would you prefer the 2 or the 3-year appointment?
Well, like anything else, it does take you a while to get going. I wouldn't be opposed to a 3-year.
Okay, so what do you, Joe
Motion
made
to
the
approve.
motion to the 3-year appointment?
Sure.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second for the 3-year appointment for Sheila Raposa. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Rick Wild. Rick, please come down.
Hi, my name's Rick. I currently live on Bridge Street. I've lived in Warren for 8 years. And in my professional world, I work for Crossroads, Rhode Island, which is the leading provider of housing and services for people experiencing homelessness in the state. So that's my personal and professional interests in affordable housing. I think that's about it for me.
Council?
Well, again, you seem eminently qualified to do this work, and we definitely appreciate you stepping up and being willing to serve on this board. And as long as you feel as though you have the time to make the commitment, I think you would be an excellent candidate.
Thanks.
What is buy nothing?
What is Buy Nothing Warren? It is it's a platform that uses Facebook. I helped found it a number of years ago, and it's basically a place where people who live in Warren can offer goods or services free of charge.
Oh, yeah, all right.
So yeah,
We've used it several times.
yeah. Membership is over 1,000, so like, you know, a good 10% of Warren is using it. So yeah.
Instead of throwing stuff away, people just repurpose, furniture,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that I included that. So
Yes, you
yeah,
did.
Because of that, I'll make the motion to appoint you
perfect.
I just,
for 3 years.
I don't know how bad I should drill you or not. My wife would probably never forgive me. Rick would be an excellent addition. I will gladly make the motion that we appoint Mr. Wild to this board for the 3-year term.
would you prefer
You're
the
gonna
3 or the
grind
2?
away
You have an
time.
option.
I'd be happy to do the 3 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
All night.
We have a motion to appoint Mr. Wild to the 3-year term. Do we have a second? Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
See you again, Rich. Take that.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Economic Development Board. We have 2 positions available.
So do we still have 2 positions open?
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Can I have a motion to advertise at the end?
Yeah, I was thinking what we can do is after the rest of these, we'll
Okay.
make a motion to re-advertise all open positions.
Thank you.
Okay. Economic Development Board, we have 2 positions available, and we have 1 applicant, Louis Michael Peterman. Is Louis here?
Was he aware that he needed to appear?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and he acknowledged that he would be.
Do we want to just continue this application until next month instead of just disqualifying him right away?
We could do that.
Well,
We've done
sure.
that in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing excludes him from coming back.
No,
Okay.
It's
We
a
have a
good
motion.
application.
I'll make a motion that we continue Mr. Peterman's application till the June meeting.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next position is Harbor Management Commission. There's 1 position available, and we have an applicant, James Barber. Hey, James, come on down.
Thank you. I'm Jim Barber, lived here in town for 11 years. Most of my life has been heavily devoted to work and family, but I'm semi-retired now, so I have time and have really been looking for some way to contribute to the town, which we would love. And saw the Harbor Management Commission position open. And a large part of the attraction of the town to us was, as for many, the intimacy of the town and its waterways. And I'm an avid sailor. My wife loves clamming along the shore, that kind of thing. We've got 4 grandkids and another one on the way, and would hope that this be a real magnet for them for many, many years. And so I thought I'd just throw my hat in the ring and offer my services here. I'd be very interested in doing it.
Thank you. Questions?
I don't have any questions. How do you feel about public access to the water?
Well, obviously, it's a public resource, so there has to be public access. And I'm sure there's competing interests and there's balancing acts that have to be made, but it's a resource that everybody in town should enjoy. And I guess maybe people from out of the town too, if I understand.
Not everybody's lucky enough to be living on the water, so the access is pretty important and more.
Understood, certainly.
No questions. Nope.
I'm an avid power boater. You're an avid sailor, but with the price of gas, I think you're gonna have a lot more fun this summer than I am, so. That being said, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you
Welcome
very much.
aboard. Okay, so we do have some open positions. Can I get a motion to re-advertise all the open positions?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next we're on to the minutes. First one is the April 12th, 2022 regularly scheduled minutes. Any concerns, corrections, comments?
I didn't find any. I don't know if anyone else did. I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept the April 12th, 2022 regularly scheduled minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have, and there was an updated minutes presented to us for the 20, there was just a minor correction on it for the 2022-2023 budget workshop on April 18th. I reviewed what I saw and I didn't see any issues with it.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the Monday, April 18th,
We have-
2022 third budget workshop meeting minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The consent agenda, there is nothing on it. So we will move right to 01 for ordinances. Harbors and vessels, Article 3, mooring regulation. This is the second reading. We did review this last month. There were just a couple of changes. I think there was only one change that we needed to change to no greater than. But other than that, I think that's the only thing we had discussed last month. What's the council's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve 01. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
01 passes. Next, we have 02, licenses and business regulations. This is for the number of licenses. We have an applicant that is going to be coming in, which is gonna put our BVs at the number of 29. We only have 28. The one thing I wanted to say on this, and I actually asked the solicitor to see if it was okay to do, would be instead of approving the 29 to go to 30. So the next applicant that came in, we may be able to save them a month on their opening. The council is open to that.
I have a question for Mr. DeSisto, and I'm sure we've asked this in the past. Why do we have to limit the number? Because we could refuse someone's request the night they come in. Why do we have to have the bite at the apple for increasing the number all the time?
Because you have a set number of licenses. It's not like, how can I say, it's not like it's a free thing. In other words, you have 28 licenses now, you have to create another one to give. So it's not so much that there's a limitation, it's just you have a certain amount of licenses.
So we couldn't do something ordinance-wise up to 30 and only have 29 be issued?
You could have a limitation at 30,
Okay.
even though you only have 28 issued.
Yeah.
So then you have 2 free licenses. I would add that when I first was appointed, there were only 13 BV licenses in the town.
Understood.
And that was a big issue. And in fact, the policy was if a business went out, they'd reduce the number.
Yeah.
But times changed with the economy. The feeling was rather than making somebody buy a license and have that added cost to add a business, the number started to float up. And there were times when the number was set higher than the amount of licenses so that they would be there and you didn't have to go through the 2-step process, which is, I think, what's being proposed today.
Yeah, I mean, it's, in today's world, most of the, if you get somebody that wants to come in for a new restaurant or something, they're also gonna want the BV license. I just think maybe if it can save them a month and get them open a month earlier.
So we could make the ceiling up to 30, even though we're only going to issue 28 or 29.
You'd say that the number of
It's
BV
30,
licenses is set at
and then
30.
Yeah. and then
Can we
issue
make it
that.
35?
You could, yes.
Yeah.
So there just has to be an actual number.
correct?
That's correct, yes.
Got it.
Well, there's a larger question here, is that how many licenses do we want to have out there? I mean, that, maybe not a discussion for tonight, but I think it's a question for us as a council. How many licenses?
Well, but the way I'm looking at it is that BV is basically a restaurant, correct? It's not just like a bar room, correct?
Well, a BV license is the service of alcohol is contingent upon the service of food. And it's incidental to the serving of food. That's what it's for. It's really a restaurant license, you're correct.
Is there too many? Possibly, but I don't see it as a problem under that situation. Somebody wants to bring them to a mom and pop. They want to have, their drinks. Going on with it. I just thought it would be easier for people coming in. I didn't really look at the total amount, because I don't think we actually have that much issue with the ones we have now, so I don't see like creating one or two more, all of a sudden we're going to balloon some major problems.
I like looking at it case by case, figuring out where it's going. I mean, the number to me is still inconsequential. If we made it 50,
We still have to review the license.
everything
absolutely.
has to happen other
Yeah.
than the first night of changing this number.
Yep.
So if we were to take the 29, turn it to 30, do we have to extend this to next month's meeting because 30 wasn't on the agenda? Or do we have to, are we stuck with the 29?
No, in matters of this nature, you can put it up to 30.
Okay.
What would you like to do, folks?
Motion to go 30.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to increase the number of BV licenses to 30.
I like even numbers.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next we're up to petitions. On this here, I'm gonna move, P3 up first, because the other three matters, I'm going to need to recuse myself because they're all in my neighborhood. So the first one is request for a mobile food establishment permit from the Right Scoop. Is there someone here representing the Right Scoop? Please come down. Hello.
Hi, how are you tonight? My name is Ellen Puccetti from Wright's Dairy Farm,
Hi.
Wright Scoop.
Oh, there you go. No, I see the picture.
Will this be your second or third season?
This is the second season.
Second season, that's what I
Yes.
thought. And you intend to open when?
We are open.
You are open?
Yes,
Okay,
Just open.
yes,
just open.
Yes.
Last week, yeah.
yes,
All right.
Are you down at Blount's?
yes.
Required.
Is that Warren?
A hot fudge sundae still on the menu?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve the permit
I'll second it.
and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, and the next three matters, I will be recusing myself.
You're going good. Thank you
Thank
so
you very much.
Good luck.
Turn this over to,
Yep. All right, so next on the agenda, we have P1, request for a one-day entertainment license, Modest Swords on King Street. Please come forward. So you're also here for a one-day entertainment license?
For-
P1, P2, and P4. No, I'm sorry. no, just
P1,
and
P2.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm back again, and my name is Mara Swords. I live on King Street in Warren. So I have two daughters this year. One is graduating Mount Hope, going into Roger Williams. So P2 is for a birthday and graduation party for her, and P1 is for my youngest one. It's a sweet 16. And I'm requesting a one-day entertainment license because I would like to have a DJ for both, if possible.
Questions? I'll start down at the end. Go ahead.
And your neighbors, you've canvassed the hood and everybody is,
We do, we have a ladder actually that we are going to put into further of our neighbors.
Okay.
The noise is gonna be a little bit, so we'll make sure they are aware. And most of the neighbors around Cherry Street, King Street, and we can go as far as Massasoit Ave as well.
Okay, and you're expecting 40 people and,
It's about 40.
okay,
Sorry, it's like some are Portuguese and part of our family's Italian, so we invite one uncle and they'll end up coming another uncle, and another cousin and another cousin, so.
okay.
I get it.
I have a good way of making sure you don't have any problem.
Yes,
The first party is for the 16-year-old.
correct. Yes.
We'll let your daughter know that if there's a problem at this one, she's probably gonna lose hers. I think that'll be the best way to make sure there's not a problem in the neighborhood,
Alicia, so.
right?
Okay.
I thought they were the same date until I looked.
No, one's in August. Yeah. Fran, any questions?
No,
Nothing.
straightforward. Motion to approve.
I'm gonna do some housekeeping.
Yeah.
Police, you're on notice. Okay. Right, very good. Fire, you're also, no issues. All right. Parking, you're gonna be just responsible to make sure that you don't congest so the
Correct.
traffic can get through.
Right, and the 16th, Sweet 16 is pretty straightforward. Most of the kids are being dropped off by their parents.
Okay.
Their parents are picking them up. The 18th, I believe my daughter, some of her friends are kind of carpooling, because they are 18s. And I've already instructed them to park.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All
And this is
opposed?
for P1 and P2?
Yes,
Correct.
yep, for P1 and P2. None opposed, the motion passes. Good luck.
Thank
Thank
you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now we're on to P4, a request for a victualling license from the Point East Bay, 747 Main Street. Is there anyone here representing? Oh, wait a minute, the manager. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm not sure if Mr. King's present, but I had a good conversation with him yesterday, and I didn't believe that he was going to be present tonight. He has a combined application actually where he's also requesting MFE licenses, but there's just some issues, some housekeeping issues that we need to take care of to get that petition in order for the town council to consider. So my recommendation is that we continue the victualling license to coincide with the hearing for the MFE licenses. This is a matter that already went to the zoning board, but there will be waivers requested from the town council from the requirements of the MFE license as part of this petition. So I've been working with the town solicitor on getting that information to Mr. King so that he can file the supplemental paperwork that's required. And then I believe if the town council might be amenable, then perhaps we could look at potentially scheduling a short special meeting for this so that he can get a decision and move forward with his business plan in an expeditious manner.
Is this the same person who runs the taco box?
Yes.
And is he planning to have both operating and do one business there and maintain the taco box? I don't know which way I'm pointing, but where it is
Yes.
currently?
Yes, and the issue is, so he has a petition, which you see in front of you for the victualling license for the building at 747 Main Street, which is the food mart. He also would like to have food trucks on the property. So the issue is that your existing ordinance requires a 250-foot buffer between a victualling license and an MFE. And it doesn't, even if it's his own victualling license, he's still required to have that 250-foot setback. So that is, he will need to return to the town council to request relief from that setback requirement, in addition to requesting the victualling license and the MFE approval.
So he would be serving food out of the building structure or just using that as commissary?
Primarily a commissary. He might have some stools in the building, but his primary interest is having MFEs out in the parking lot.
In his own, but
Not his, no.
not his, just
But
so
he would have a takeout window
for his own
his own
tacos.
from the building.
And would he set up seating outside?
Extra seating, he would be providing bathrooms, he's providing repair station for people like that.
Sounds like a good use of that space.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Ms. Misha, would we be able to add this to the May 19th meeting?
Assuming that we could get the paperwork completed in time, we still need to receive some additional paperwork from Mr. King.
So you would be able to do that through your own administrative calendar. You don't need an action from us for that.
If it's added onto an existing meeting, no. If we can't get it on that agenda, then I may need to reach out to the council for additional scheduling questions.
Right, so I just wanted to point out that we are going to be here for that evening, just so
Okay.
that doesn't slip our minds.
Yeah, and one other thing is he's going to need a physical alteration permit from DOT, which we did discuss yesterday when I spoke with him. So that'll be something that, it'll be up to the council. When you hear the full petition, you could make your approval subject to receiving that permit. I don't know what the timeline is on him applying for and receiving that approval, because that's out of our purview.
Does he need that for opening?
He will need that for opening.
Then there's no rush.
Department of Transportation, because his curb cut is on a state road
Oh,
and it's a change of use of the property.
so he's got some work to do. 2029 maybe. Put it on the tip calendar. I hope they do. I hope they're not as slow as they are with other issues. Oh, okay, good. Well, we wish him luck.
So we need a motion to continue this.
Yes, please.
But we don't know when we're continuing it to.
To the next available date.
Okay.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It is continued to the next available meeting of the council, and the president is back at the chair.
Kind of like sitting over there.
If I can accuse myself of a couple of things. All right, we're good.
Okay, next we're up to correspondence. Is there anything anyone wants to pull?
Can we send a letter of thanks to Mr. Uriah Donnelly for his service?
Absolutely.
Other than that, I have none.
I think might want to look at C6, which is a letter, resolution from the town of Charleston in supporting categorical transportation aid.
At
And
C10,
C10, thank you.
both.
As well, C10 as well, which is from Hopkinton with the same issue. So the categorical transportation aid will be cut under the governor's proposal by like $1.6 million, and it's going to have a effect on regional districts. Warren will be affected by about $400,000. So I'm suggesting that we add into these resolutions as the town of Warren.
Okay. Yeah, let's see, we have a motion to pull, what is it, C6 and C10?
Yep.
And sign on to those existing resolutions?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I believe I would instruct the town clerk to draft something saying we support those resolutions as presented. Okay, next we have new business, request for a demolition permit. Assessors Plat 5, Lot 117, BRB Realty, 53 Wheaton Street. Good, how are you?
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Brian LaPlante. I'm here on behalf of BRB Realty and the Blount family. They're seeking the council approval for Blount's application for a demolition of the structure located at 53 Wheaton Street. And that's under section 4-35 of the ordinance. That it comes back to you after initially the applicant appeared before the WVHDC. And tonight, I just want to initially make some points, and then I'm going to have Mr. Blount speak, and then Casey Stotts is here. She's an architect with some brief information for you, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have about this structure and this property. The intention is to basically knock the structure down and backfill it and place gravel at the site, level it, and repair the property, put some new fencing up. Mr. Blount is going to speak to you about his communications with the neighbors, about what he's asking to have done and what he's and what the feedback has been from those neighbors. And I'm going to turn now to Todd Blount to talk about his communications again with the abutters, and then we'll go to Casey. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Thanks for your time and appreciate serving on this board. After we came past the Historic Commission, we thought we'd get a little bit more support for the cause and went to each of the abutters explaining kind of why we're doing it. This building sits in some of their backyards somewhat because it's, and so I had, instead of having them each write a letter, can I hand this to someone? Hand these up? I just had them read through what we were doing and the intention. So we've got all the dwellings that encompass 53 Wheaton, other than 50 Wheaton, because I couldn't get an answer from that house. So I gave them the chance to be opposed to it or for it, and they were all for the removal of the structure. I can talk a little bit later about other ideas, but really right now is our goal is to remove the structure, given the timing that it's vacant and in its current state.
So I'm going to have Casey Stotz, S-T-O-T-Z, speak a bit. She has a master's degree in architecture, and we've asked her to look at the historical significance or lack of significance of the structure, and whether its continued existence would not be in the best interest of the community, which is the standard that you have to apply under that section of the ordinance. And I just want to briefly comment on the letter that was, or communication that was made to you by the WVHDC. The applicant appeared that evening, and there was a lot of discussion. A lot of the discussion concerned just the existence of the residence, and the need for housing, if you will. And so it went a bit astray, but ultimately the focus that we'd like to place on this is in accordance with the ordinance, which is whether this structure has historic significance. And it's our position ultimately that it does not, but you'll hear more from Casey on that front. I have a report that Casey prepared. It's a lot of photographs that she actually has a presentation to communicate with you about. And I want to pass this out if I can. But if you could also just turn your attention to Casey Stotz and her presentation about what is in the report itself. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. As he said, my name is Casey Stotz. I do have a bachelor and master's degree in architecture from Wentworth Institute of Technology. I've worked for residential firms, architecture firms for 6 years, and now I am doing commercial interior design as well as architecture. But what I've created for you is the report, and then I have some larger images so that I can help you guys so you guys don't have to flip back and forth as I kind of go through it. So a brief overview of the property is that it was built in the 1940s by the Thurston family. It was always considered kind of a secondary structure to their 406 Water Street property. It was kind of, like I said, secondary structure. Most of the family stayed there at some point. What I would like to point out is that although it is from the 1940s, there is no historical architectural style to the building. This is the front elevation here. Because it is a mixture of so many styles put together, it doesn't fit in one particular style. And knowing from the Historic District Committee, any alterations that would need to be done to the building would need to fit into kind of one historical style going forward to better fit the community.
Is that one structure or is that two separate
It is
structures?
actually one structure. So
Okay.
what I believe based on the records is the portion on the right is actually an addition that happened at some point.
Okay.
If you go to the next slide, please, that shows you an actual layout. You can see it is a very, very minimal piece that connects the two portions of the structure together. Also, at one point during, I believe, the 1970s, it was granted that a parking lot, a paved area, could be placed in front of the structure on the property to support the building that was Thurston Sales at the time. So because of that, it's a really odd mixture of residential and commercial, which is not in alignment with anything else that's around the neighborhood. The other residences that are on Wheaton Street are very upfront on the lots. They create a really strong streetscape that you can see going down the lot. This building, for being so far back and also being a completely different architectural style than anything else in the neighborhood, is really kind of a jarring feeling when you walk by it as you go down the street. If you could go to the next slide. So some key architectural features here. The minimal traditional style is more present on the right-hand side. There's elements of salt box colonial revival as well as Cape Cod. All of these pieces are all put together to kind of, it mimics an architectural style, but it's not actually anything that's defined as such. If you go to the next slide, please. So I took some photos of other buildings, residences in the neighborhood that actually meet into those style, architectural styles. This one is 50 Linden. That is considered minimal traditional. It's very simple, very put together. The reason for that is because these are from the Sears catalog bank box. They're meant to be quick, instant kind of housing prior to our now manufactured housing. That's obviously not the case with 53 Wheaton. Next slide, please. This is 49 Wheaton Street. It's actually right next to it. Again, very simple, very small footprint, singular building. Next slide, please. This is going into the Cape Cod style. That is shutters, dormers. I'm sure you all are very familiar with the Cape Cod style in this area. Although that is seen on the right-hand side of 53 Wheaton, it doesn't carry over. So it's almost two different styles are put together on 53 Wheaton. Next slide. This is another wonderful example of a Cape Cod. Even though this does have an addition, you can see how it is more put together. It's in line with that same style. They speak to each other. It feels more connected. And I'll go to the last slide. This is just showing an overview of Wheaton Street itself. You can see on the southern side of the street, all of the property is, all of the residences are right up against the sidewalk. And 53 Wheaton, where the red dot is completely far removed. And again, that is that paving area that was done, I believe, in the 70s. That was permitted and granted. So.
Is the access to that building through that parking?
Yes,
that
it is
paved
through
area?
that paved parking lot in that area. If you could go back to that first front facade image, yeah, or any of these actually. The entrance to both that parking lot and that house is actually through this parking lot. So it does make it a very odd property.
Any questions from the council for the architect?
When was the last time somebody lived in? October of 21.
Yeah, if I can have Mr. Blount speak to some of that, and he has some other points to make,
Okay.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, the property, for better or worse, had a lot of tenants had some challenges there. So we just went through some challenge time. I'm sure the chief of police would agree that that particular, the last tenant, it took a very long time to leave. So that left in October. So the building's been in disrepair during that time, other than the health and safety things we need to do. So we've canvassed the community. We believe that there's no historic value, as well as really no business value relative to taking it down and rebuilding it. We look at this as a moment in time because it is empty and it is in disrepair and it doesn't have proper use. Many would be wondering, okay, well, what are you going to do? We are separating this moment in time because of the way it came about with the tenant leaving from any future plans. But in general, our goal is to use this space to support the market in some way, not necessarily expand the market operations. Could be parking, could be, at a minimum, we'll be fixing the landscaping, fencing, and ground as part of the demolition and part of the, just the things that would need to be done to that property. So this is a standalone demolition request, not connected to other, zoning. If we were to do anything there, obviously we'd have to come back through zoning, permitting, and different things depending on us, but we don't, we're truly not here with a grand scheme of plan. We're looking for the opportunity to remove the building while it's empty and disrepair, because it gets into that unique situation. If we leave it vacant too long, it goes into more disrepair. If we try and fix it, then we're putting off an inevitable situation. We believe this is the time to do it.
I have some questions, Mr. Mount. Is this, I think this letter says that the lot is residential.
Correct.
So you're using the lot now commercially?
There's been parking there from the previous use. There's some sales. The market actually has, I think, 3 or 4 spots there. So it is it could be a conflicting use.
Right, so I'm confused. If the spaces are approved for commercial use and it's a residential lot, how does that work?
I'm not entirely sure. But my guess is that was granted this now, but they prior to that.
All right, so, well, I have a couple more questions. Some of the problems that I have with this request have to do with encroachment in residential neighborhood. And I can speak of specifics. We had a situation on Laurel Lane where there was a request, and it wasn't a demolition request, but it was a request for a change of the zoning. And then we have a situation on Market Street, which was where do we stop the commercial in regards to Pearson Yachts? Then there's, at the time, it was, what was it? I don't know, it's the landscaping place. Then the next lots wanted to be commercial. And we stuck to our guns there because at some point, the line has to be drawn. Now, I'm actually not so against the request for the demolition as I am for what would come after that. And my concern is how do we secure the knowledge of the neighborhood that the commercial is going to stay where it is? Now, I know that you have a position taken where tonight we're looking at demolition. That's not what I'm only looking at, because I have to think of why you want to demolish it, what your potential use would be, and as you've already mentioned, down the road, coming back for a discussion, at which point the discussion would be, well, since we took the building down, we figure now we might as well just addition, add a lot, whatever. I have lived here my whole life, as you know, and I'm very sensitive and aware of supporting our commercial districts, but not at the expense of our residential neighborhoods, because we have that mixed use aspect, because we have the village business, because we have residents who want to live next to those things. I've always tried to maintain the strength and the fact that they live next to those things, knowing that where they are is where they'll stay. So I'm not necessarily saying you have to put up, the Taj Mahal or do whatever you want with the building. My concern is opening the door to future commercial use, because the parking is grandfathered in as a non-conforming use. But I don't believe you'd be able to build there with any grandfathered non-conforming use. I don't believe you'd be able to do anything there down the road without coming back.
That's why we felt comfortable separating the two.
I understand.
It's
the chess player's move.
I appreciate the insight, and it's not lost on us. We get it. We get it. And I think what's really important is what Todd said earlier, which is no matter what happens, and I've warned him like you just did, once it's demolished, any use beyond that which exists now has to go through the zoning ordinance, your solicitor's monitoring of that, your zoning board's monitoring. It has to go through processes, right? Planning, zoning, waterfront, because of where it is. You're going to get scrutiny of the very things that you're concerned about. And from my conversations with the applicant, and again, they've been very preliminary. They have we handled the eviction, which was one of the longest evictions I've ever dealt with in my life. It has been, it was traumatic as an eviction can be. That's what's leading to this, but certainly cognizance of going forward led me to talk to the client about this. And I don't perceive this as a massive expansion effort. It's not going in that fashion. It's more of a buffering, frankly. The neighbors had difficult tenants right next to them. Now that you remove that, it gives the owner an opportunity to create buffer, to create more protections. And to the extent that the applicant wants to do something more, they have to ask for permission. And that will be scrutinized.
And a zone change would come from this council.
That's a fair point too, right?
It starts there.
That's very true. This very council.
Well, a sitting council. It may not be this one.
Right.
Right, Mr. LaPlante is nothing if not creative, because there's two routes to take it. He's going to agree with me on this. One is to make his own change, but you could also, because there's going to be no beneficial use on that lot, you could just go straight to the zoning board and ask for a use variance and say, even though it's a higher standard to get the use variance, if you don't give me this, I have no beneficial use of the property.
But Anthony, wouldn't the hardship be created by himself for a voluntary demolition? This is not an act of God. This is a voluntary demolition, which dissolves any legal non-conforming status of that house.
Yes, and you're correct on the law. Mr. LaPlante knows that I'm the solicitor in Lincoln, because they gave a use variance out for an 80-unit complex where it shouldn't have gone. And the zoning board said yes. It's there now. That's the problem. So there's two routes that can be taken here. One is ask for the zone change, but two is ask for a use variance. I'm not going to say it's going to be approved, but just so long as you know that there's two routes to be taken once the house comes down. That's all I'm saying.
But any further action will require action from the town, either the council or the zoning board.
I'd agree with that, yes.
As well as planning. If it's a commercial use, land development project, it'll get planning.
It's advisory only. It's advisory only because you need the zoning approval. If zoning approval is needed, then all the planning board does is make a recommendation to the zoning board.
With respect to the use, but with respect to the project itself and the improvements, I think that no.
Read our ordinance. It's not like it is up in North Smithfield.
Any other questions from the council?
I shared Councilman Pete Pasquale's concerns about this and future use. So if it comes down, it's still a residential site. You really can't use it commercially. You can't put anything on it. You can't do anything with it because it's residential, right? Right. Well, if we allowed you to take it down, so it's a residential lot.
Sure.
You would have to change the use. You'd have to change the use to commercial to use it commercially, correct?
If that, yeah, it's in a residential.
Right, but if you wanted to use it commercially, as I'm hearing that your ideal use would be for storage.
But to be clear, there is no intention to do that without going through processes. And because we don't know what specific direction we're going, there's not a pending process.
But the process, if you were to ask to convert to commercial,
right?
I'd say that's spot zoning. And I'd be concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
I appreciate that, but
that's my
definitionally, I don't think it really meets spot zoning because it's connected to a commercial corridor, which is all zoned.
But it's in the middle of a residential district, and there's a dividing line there, and it's encroaching upon that residential use.
Sure. One of the things that you can do under your ordinance. And I haven't communicated with my client about it, but that would likely be acceptable to my client, because I think it's the intention, is to mandate a buffer. Mandate a buffer, no matter what happens in the future. You know, that may be your ability to have some control over the outcome here.
So your suggestion is that if we were to allow the building to be removed, we could add conditions of the building being removed, and these are our conditions.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
what do you plan on doing with the building? The elephant's in the room. Let me ask you a question. What do you plan on doing?
I don't have money we're used to do anything today. Again, my best, I believe the best use is a small ability to support the market and create a buffer. I certainly would not actually want you to put a requirement that would conflict with potential creativity that, even with your own planning board. So I'd rather they would do that.
So this is more in support of the market.
If I were to do something, to keep it empty and vacant, I feel is the time of essence, whatever the right phrase is time is of the essence to do that now. Because otherwise it's going to be vacant, it's going to be empty. I'm not looking to repair, to rent it. So I'd like to remove it as kind of a moment in time and then start over again when the budgeting, the need comes to support, whether it's parking, additional storage.
So the history of the market, I think, was 2012 when you came before zoning.
We opened it in earlier than that, like 2000, around 2000.
But you had to come to zoning.
Came several times.
Yes, but connected to those parking spaces.
Yes, we did. We
and that's what the solicitor was, because he wasn't the solicitor.
No. The parking was done by Thurston Sales.
Yeah.
No, not the parking lot, but the addition of the parking to trying to satisfy your customer needs, which was one of the first points of contingents in the neighborhood.
Right.
So,
and I think that was around 12.
That would have been correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, but since then, we made an agreement with the town to build a license of parking along the town ramp. So we've increased parking both for the town and for the customers. I think it really, here's where we stand. I believe taking the building down, I agree with you, is something's going to happen. If we don't approve this, I'm not rebuilding the house, right? So voting to deny this demolition does not mean the house turns into something beautiful and it stays. It'll just be what it is, and we'll continue to park there. If we take it down, then, as Mr. LaPlante said, we will then begin visioning over the next couple of years, as we always do, working with the town, planning, administration, and we go from there. There's not really a good opportunity to like double the market or anything like that, but there are issues that, long-term, the market has some storage and some things that would be probably cleaned up in the back. Obviously, I would recommend parking if that's allowed. And then, by nature, it'd be natural to build some kind of landscaping buffer around that for my neighbors, who all of these neighbors have a great relationship with and would want to maintain that.
All right, just so you know, you wouldn't be able to just let it sit there and deteriorate.
Understood.
We do have minimum housing standards that you would have to maintain.
Right.
But I actually have a question for the solicitor at this time. Tony, what is our purview right here? What do we have? What can we take in as evidence? Are we just looking at the historical value at this point? Or can we look at future possible use at this point?
What you're looking at. Under the ordinance, you've got two things. You got to take a look at the report that you get from the Voluntary Historic District Commission. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you've heard essentially the rebuttal for that tonight. But what you also need to do is to go to section 4-35 of the ordinance. And that sets out the standards that you have for tonight. I don't think it's inappropriate for you to have the discussion that you're having, that what's going to happen here afterwards. I do think that's an appropriate. I don't think this is. But what you need to do in your motion is to follow the following standards, which I'm going to read out to you now, as soon as my computer starts to work. And they are: what you need to do is, in the case of a main or principal building or structure located in the Warren National Waterfront Historic District, what this is, the town council may grant a waiver to alter or demolish a building or structure only upon a finding that at least one of the following exists. One, retention of such building or structure constitutes a hazard to public safety, which hazard cannot be eliminated by economic means available to the owner. Or two, preservation of such building or structure would cause undue or unreasonable financial hardship to the owner, taking into account the financial resources available to the owner, including the sale of the building or structure, to any purchaser willing to preserve such building or structure. Or three, preservation of such building or structure would not be in the best interest of the community. Any property owner seeking a waiver to demolish or alter a main or principal building or structure in the Warren Waterfront Historic District shall also be required to make a showing to the town council that the proposed demolition or alteration complies with all the requirements of the state building code. Those are the three standards under the ordinance.
Oh, we only have to use one, right?
Correct. You just have to find one of the three.
We're advising the third. Is where
Yeah, our position, as I said at the outset of this presentation, is that it's really number three that we're asking you to key in on, which is preservation of such building or structure would not be in the best interest of the community. It really follows the expert testimony and analysis done that this setback, awkward structure, being preserved is not in the best interest of the community. There's nothing remarkable about it that supports that. And what you have in front of you for evidence is that the abutters actually support the application. The community has spoken.
Mr. Palmer, one of my concerns, I probably have more than one, starts off with the difficulty of the decision is never made easier when the applicant comes in front of us without a strict, specific future use. Applicants come in thinking, first step, check. They don't think of what we did. We sit here thinking last check in the neighborhood. So your list and our list are always flip-flopped. So it's a great mentality as the applicant to come in and say, hey, you know what? Let's just clean the table. And then down the road, when we have the money, when we have the plans, we'll figure it out. Unfortunately, you have a placeholder, a residential building on that property. Is it in good shape? Probably not. One could criticize the responsibility of the landlord over the years. Has it not been maintained as well as it should have been? Were there not better tenant scrutiny than there should have been? Those aren't our concerns. The concerns we have is the request for an open table, the possibility of being able to include in your future arguments, well, it's not there anymore. So because it's not there, why don't we look at the best use of the property? I'm sitting here letting it be clear to you that those same neighbors, Todd, that call you, they call me. You know that. I've got them on speed dial. Nobody in that neighborhood wants the commercial to continue. I feel that the mixed use or non-conforming use is legally in question if you get rid of that building, because you only have a non-conforming use for parking. It could be parking for that residence. It could be parking for, well, you tell me what's in your research.
Yeah, it's that the supportive parking is for the market, always has been for decades.
Not in 1970, that was Thurston Sales. I grew up here.
Okay.
So when that parking lot was paved, nobody thought of any harm to anything. It was a working street. It was a working neighborhood. Paving was better than mud. Why not? But now, when we have a regulated society dealing with property values of $400,000 and people complaining about our smell of poop, his smell of soup, the traffic, the this, the that, and everything else, as successful as he is at the Clam Shack, I get phone calls all the time.
because Warren has now become a place where a destiny of outsiders come to enjoy Warren. Mr. Blount has big shoulders. He understands the business world. I look at this request as a very huge concern for down the road.
Yeah.
I don't like putting somebody in a position of, well, you know what, if you don't take it down, you're going to have to live with it. But I also don't like playing a hand laid to me. Well, if it's gone, at least we don't have to worry about it. And then, we'll put up a storage container or something that's feasible. A walk-in cooler. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I would much rather know what you're doing.
I appreciate that. With all due respect, I think foresight's fantastic. I served on a local board for a long time in my town. I get it. I have a great deal of respect for Mr. DeSisto. However, I don't see in this ordinance anywhere that suggests that you can and should scrutinize the potential future use. That's not an element that's before you. I think
The
it's
impact on the neighborhood. It says it right there.
not in the best interest of the community.
Right.
Okay. But what I've told you seems it's really important that we all are on the same page about this. And I don't think there's any dispute. I want to be clear about this. There is nothing about demolishing this home, this structure, that would pave the way for commercial use. Nothing about it. Zero. The fact that let's say the house we don't even appear before you. We could ask for a zone change under those circumstances. We could ask for it post demolition. The timing is irrelevant. The state of the property is irrelevant. The scrutiny of a zone change will follow no matter what. It will go through planning with a recommendation. It'll go through this council. So I don't think that this is a gateway to anything, frankly, other than what we've talked about tonight, which is we have an awkward structure that has no true historic value. That's why we're before you. That's why Mr. Blount's before you. And there's no game playing here. I mean, it's not as if we're secretly holding architectural plans for a massive build out of the market. That's not happening. And he's too entrenched here to play that game with you. Right? That's not.
I can answer.
I don't know.
Well,
Well,
you might be asking me specifically because of the question.
Well, I can,
I don't believe he has any hidden. I do believe he has said future use, future storage, future construction, future assets to make the project feasible. That sounds like a man I trust is telling me, if this building were gone down the road, I'm going to be able to do what I can to support my business when it fits my resources.
Right.
I disagree with you.
I don't know if everyone else is missing this. I don't think Steve is. But even if that house comes down, to even park cars there for the business would require a trip to the zoning board. You wouldn't even be able to park in that space. That's expanding a legal non-conforming use. To expand that parking lot to where the house is, even just to park cars there, he would have to go to the zoning board. So putting a trailer, refrigerator, anything like that would require to go to the zoning board. He can't do anything on that residential portion to support the business without going to zoning. That's simple, because it's expanding, the business is legal non-conforming, and it's expanding it, which requires zoning relief to go any further.
Or this council.
Or the zone change, which would change it, correct.
Statements that, did I read it myself? That, Martin. I'm not clear on that. My presence here. The objection related to the council applicant. I'd like to run down exactly what
is to this particular lot. That you have that information making a decision on one of these three factors in section 4 that I think is relevant. Actually, I think it's not. I don't feel it the last second.
Yeah, I don't.
You're probably gonna ask why I haven't done this before, but just listening to the discussion tonight, I think it's relevant that you know exactly what the permitting district is property before you.
Is that acceptable to the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, and actually, because we are here, is there anybody from the public that wanted to speak on this? I don't know if it's a public hearing, but it's still something that would affect them. All right, we don't see anybody from the public, so I guess we need a motion to continue this to the next regularly
June
scheduled
meeting.
June meeting.
So moved.
Maybe that long for it. Not what I do in the reports.
Okay.
And I don't want to hold anything back. I'll send it out to Mr. Nick before the next meeting.
Yep. And I just, does the council, I don't believe we would need the architect here if you would rather do something than be here. I don't think you need to come back if you don't, if you prefer not to. All right, all right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank you. Next. Next on the agenda is from Councilman Di Pasquale, and it's a discussion and action to allow local artists to paint murals on the wastewater treatment facility. Joe?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Back when we started the reconstruction of the sewer plant, I remember looking at the design drawings and seeing a large wall and thought it would be great for murals. And I would like to entertain the thought of having local Warren artists first being offered the opportunity for murals to be painted on the big white walls. How does everybody feel about that?
Yeah, I think part of that, should we refer the design to the Arts and Cultural Commission for recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I know I've had conversations with Kate over the past couple of years, as well as others, about the idea of doing a green wall there, you know, having some, a growing wall, and I've researched that, and there are actually existing examples of that in the Northeast. And there's all sorts of benefits to that, and who's to say there couldn't be a combination. The idea of having local artists paint murals sounds wonderful, or green things, but it would all have to be parsed out and funded and organized and sort of a process established, so that, you know, would they be permanent? Would they be, you know, annually changed? Would they be, you know, would they be up there? Would there be a theme to it? I mean, we've got a lot of talent here in this town in terms of artists and whatnot. So I'm sure there's, you know, an explosion of ideas. I think it's a great idea, but I think it needs to be sort of put into a program and vetted.
I agree. I think that though we could consider a combination of greenery, landscaping, and some artist touch down there. So it'd be nice to coordinate those things.
Do you think the proper place to refer to is the Arts and Cultural Commission?
Certainly that would make sense. As far as landscaping goes, that might not be in their wheelhouse, so that might require another.
Yeah, landscaping is definitely needed down there.
You know, I'm not that enthused about planting plants on the wall. I look at it as an opportunity for some art. So one of the groups that we have in the city is, what is it, the Avenue Concept. So they have a format that I'm sure we could follow. What I'm most concerned about is not necessarily opening it up to everybody. I would like to be able to showcase Warren artists first and figuring out how to go about that process. The second thing is that this will take some funds. that when artists do their work, it's not, a lot of times it's, people don't associate their cost to the value. And I don't like knowing the cost of everything, the value of nothing. So I would like Ms. Mishu to be able to bring us back a recommendation with some research that could enhance the discussion and support the discussion and figure out what way we're going to go. The first thing I wanted to do is simply bring up the idea and hopefully get the green light to start the process. So that's what I'm asking for is.
Put that in the form of a motion.
Yes.
We have a motion to ask Ms. Mishu to look into and come forward with some recommendations for the process to local artists to decorate the wall. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have, again from Councilman DePasquale, discussion and action regarding public notifications in town projects.
Right. So having a discussion with a nice constituent named Mary Ann brought to my attention that in Burrillville, where she used to live, when, and this comes from a lot of the criticisms that we've received about my response of letting people know that we have meetings every month, go on the website, take a look. I'm sorry that you don't know that this meeting was happening. That's a lot of my response a lot of times. So what they do in Burrillville is you have the opportunity to email in, and then when you get put on their subscription list, you then are sent out the calendar every month with all the municipal meetings, all the affairs, everything.
The agenda and all of that.
Anything that the town has that we're sending out, they would get. So instead, the only concern or effort that the constituent would need is that one time registering. So they register and then they're on the mailing list all the time. Again, I would like Ms. Mishu to be given the task of looking at Burrillville, because I know Burrillville does it. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and allowing one more way for the public to be connected with our municipal calendar.
Okay, do we have the capability to have people sign up on the website and make a global list? So every time an agenda goes out, they automatically get emailed it?
Secretary of State does
So,
it.
yeah, there's a few different options. Secretary of State's website, you can subscribe to any board or commission in the state of Rhode Island. You go on the Secretary of State's website, you subscribe to that specific board and commission. Anytime an agenda or minutes gets posted, a notice will get emailed to you automatically. Sandy also keeps an email list. She has several hundred people on her list that receive the town council agendas every month. And if there's more kind of general notices, that also goes out to that list. So it's kind of an informal list, but as I said, I think there's several hundred people on that list. And then we are in the process of upgrading our website. So we have the calendar feature on our website currently, but it's not as functional as it should be. So while we are doing the upgrade, one of the features of the updated website will be the ability to subscribe to the calendar. But we don't currently do that at this moment with the existing site.
I do think that the website does allow us to have more robust communication, but that requires oversight. And that's been, in my understanding, been the problem, that we don't have anybody to actually monitor and upgrade. And it falls on you, which is, more than we should ask of you, and other volunteers. So I'm not sure, if we, how we're going to, actually make this happen. I think it's a question.
I think with the updated site, there's more automation involved, so people can go in and proactively subscribe to things, and it'll be a little bit easier to use and easier for us to keep up. I think that's one of the problems now, is that the existing calendar feature, we have to go in and update everything in the calendar. There's nothing that's automatically updated. So in the future, with the future site, that should work a little better.
If I may, I have been subscribing to the Secretary of State's service to notify me of upcoming meetings, including the town council. And on Sunday, May 8th, I got the notification of the Warren Town Council meeting that we're in right now, and the one that's upcoming on the 19th. And I can tap on this and get to the agenda. And this has been coming to me consistently for years now. I also have the next one, which is the Open Government Administration for the Warren Zoning Board. So tap right on that. So these come consistently. It's a set in stone and functioning system that has been serving the citizens of the state for a very long time.
Could we put a link on our website that directs them where to sign up for this?
Sure, we do link to the Secretary of State's site for agendas, but we could put some specific language about going to that site to subscribe.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that'll help too.
Right, so anything we can do to put people in a position of public knowledge is helpful, because it would not, it would allow them to participate without having to always ask somebody else what happened at the meeting. So I think those things you brought up are great, but none of them are our own access point, which I think we should have. I think that what Ms. Baroni does with her email list now is very helpful to a lot of people. And I would like to see an expansion of that, and either be it through our newly designed website or whatever you're talking about, enhancement that's coming down the road here. All I know is I'm on so many subscribed mailing lists. 99% of them I don't want to be. So if somebody wants to be on a mailing list in this day and age, I think we should allow them the opportunity to get on a mailing list from the town of Warren and know anything and everything that's going on.
It would also, I think, be very helpful. I'm not sure this is a whole other step, but if we could somehow target neighborhoods that are being impacted by, obviously, Burrs Hill situation is a perfect example of the people that showed up at that meeting were neighbors and abutters. And so somehow we could take a geographic look at specific projects like the one out at the school with the practice fields. I mean, these are things that affect people directly in those areas. So we might be able to target some, messaging in that way as well.
And also Superintendent Riley's mentioned that the school district has an app. I don't know if there's an opportunity there for us to have a Town of Warren app, and people could sign up for alerts that would specifically target them. We could push information out that was sectioned or to specific neighborhoods and whatnot. There are those. The technology is there to do that kind of communication.
So the only note I would make is that the school department has a lot more staff members than we do. And
We can do it.
basically any website updating is being done by me. And, I would hesitate to commit to too much at this point. So, I'd like to see what we can get through the existing website contractor to see what tools are already available.
I love volunteering folks when they're not here because they don't know what's coming. Terry brings up a pretty good point about the school department. I wonder if we could piggyback that app if we needed to push out information, because if they're using an app, I don't have any, do they use an app for pushing out information? I don't have any kids in the school district right now, so. You get text messages? Okay, yeah, so okay. I was just wondering if we could piggyback their format or their platform if we needed to push information out. I'm a big supporter of utilizing technology. I can't get behind putting a stamp on something and sticking it in the mailbox. It's 2022. 83% of the world's population have smartphones. That's 6.6, almost 6.7 billion people have smartphones. So putting something in an envelope and sticking it in the mailbox, I'm struggling with. But using technology, if we wanted to push information out, I'm all for it, especially if we could piggyback somebody else's platform. And I would gladly reach out to the superintendent. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'll gladly reach out to the superintendent and see if they can.
So, Mr. Ian, if I could wrap this
Sure.
up back to where we started, what I'm asking for is all of this other investigating and down the road and future websites and links. All right, not what I brought up. What I'm looking at is a municipal calendar that the clerk's office sends out every month. We got one last week.
Yes.
And there's about 200 people that get that. Utilizing what we have now, either the newspaper, the town website, me right now on TV. Go on the town website, connect to this link. You will now be a subscriber of the municipal calendar and they will get it. I'm sure we can do something like that in this day and age.
I will certainly look into it. I know we have limits
Okay.
through, we use Outlook, so we have limits to how many people we can
Put on a
include in a list in Outlook without subscribing to another service.
Okay, so that was part of the request for your research.
Yep.
All of those other things, we're kind of getting away from where I'm actually looking, because what I'm hearing from people is, as my colleagues to the right have duly noted, information's everywhere. Where the hell do I get it? So if we can have that a little easier for people to get on the municipal calendar list, I think that is all I'm trying to target with this request.
One other thing that I'll mention that we are doing, thanks to our new DPW director / IT consultant, is that we're standardizing our own internal calendars. So we're doing monitors with calendars. At DPW, they have a monitor up now with a calendar. Their calendar includes recreation, everything that's going on at all the recreational facilities and everything that's going on internally. The town clerk's office just last week installed their own monitor where they're going to be, so they can view the calendar of everything that's going on. And then we're talking the other day about installing a monitor in the hallway and merging the calendar so that anyone who comes into the building can easily look on the screen and see what's happening. So maybe there's an opportunity to expand that and create some kind of subscription out of that.
Great. So my motion is to ask Ms. Michaud to research this idea and see how we can get a subscription list to the public that allows them municipal information on our meetings.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And I would just add to that and encourage our community to sign up for the Secretary of State's alert system that is incredibly useful and in existence.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, last item on new businesses, discussion and action requesting the sign or the no right turn on Market Street to be moved by the state.
Yes, so there has been a successful petition to the state for, I believe, handicap access, not access, but there is a new no right-hand turn on Market Street on the corner of Market and Main. People were taking a right turn and going right into the crosswalk, which wasn't part of the Market Street, but it's Main Street. So when you're on Main Street pushing the button to cross, the red light wasn't stopping you from taking a right and hitting people in the crosswalk. Well, the sign is kind of to your right and behind you. It's in a tree well, because I'm glad they were able to get right out there the day after their decision and install one, but you can't see it. What I'm recommending is we thank the state for their speed of getting the sign up, but a relocation to the top where the red lights are would probably make it functional, because as is now, it's behind you. When you're that car, everybody else sees it, but that car that's right there may not have seen it because they're looking at an intersection that they're coming up to. So my request is to ask DOT to relocate that sign to a much more viewable spot.
comments from the council?
Makes sense.
Okay, can we have a motion to request DOT relocate the no turn on red sign to a more visible spot?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
As in the red light.
Yep.
Can I ask for clarification just on one point? Do we want the existing sign removed and a new sign installed, or do we, what if the state wants this? I'm sure the state's going to ask, do you want an additional sign, or would you like?
Well, but,
Gonna hurt, is it?
well, it is. I mean, all of this sign clutter. I mean,
Yeah, it's a little.
if anybody's looked at Warren lately, we've got signs saying no signs. I would rather have one better, if the sign were up where the red light is, just like they've done in other locations, I think Miller Street, you know not to turn because you're looking at the light that says don't turn. That's my request.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have town manager, discussion and action regarding supervisory personnel policy. This is continued from last month.
So at the last meeting, we did discuss one of the council members brought up the issue of merit-based pay and asked me to conduct a little research and give a little thought to the idea of including merit-based pay in this policy. I did do research and I did give it consideration, and it's my recommendation at this time not to include a merit-based pay provision into the ordinance. It's not an ordinance, I'm sorry, into the policy. My reasoning is that the council does already have the ability to review revised job descriptions and to adjust pay accordingly. And that's the process that I would prefer to follow at this time. Certainly, we can revise this policy again at any time that the council sees fit if we have some specific language to consider. But at this time, I don't have a recommendation on that specific item. And I would recommend going forward with the language as presented at this time. There was one additional correction that was required that I did miss that one of the counselors also pointed out. And that is on page 4 under the section on wage increases. There is a reference to the financial town meeting. So that correction would need to be made.
Get that.
Yep.
So just a period after the word council on the last line, and then cross out the rest, and ratified at a financial town meeting is deleted.
Question from the council?
No, I don't have anything.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the supervisory personnel policy as amended by this evening and submitted by the manager.
Second.
Could you just note to take effect as of July 1st of 2022? Please.
To take effect as of July 31st, 2022.
July 1st.
First.
July 1st. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the solicitor, discussion and action regarding a claim from Domingo Porto, number 3.
There were juveniles involved, so I can't get into the details of it, but I can tell you that my recommendation at this time is to deny the claim and refer the matter to the interlocal trust.
Motion to deny and refer it to the trust.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
I do have a question.
Yep.
Why are we responsible for this?
Yeah, why is this before us?
Yeah, that's the next question, is why the town's involved in the first place anyway. I could, in my review of the claim, I could see no contact with the town of Warren at all, which would warrant some type of a negligence claim. But notwithstanding that, whenever a claim is filed against the town, we have an obligation under the trust insurance policy to notify them of it. That we denied it in this case, but we're going to refer it to them just so we protect our interests under the policy terms.
Understood. Thanks.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 2, request a motion for executive session, potential litigation, Warren Gateway Center. Do we have a motion to go into executive session? Do we have a second? A second. Roll call vote. Councilwoman Cronin.
Aye.
Councilman Brandt Heckert.
Aye.
Councilman De Pasquale.
Aye.
Councilman Kalenda.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Finance Director, Revenues and Expenditures.
Evening. I furnished the people report, and at this moment, I don't have anything out of the ordinary. Do you have any questions?
We can keep the lights on for another month.
Any questions from the council?
Too long.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have tax assessor abatements and additions. The 2022 tax roll.
Hey, Chris.
Good evening.
How you doing?
So I did provide the backup, so I guess if there's any questions regarding the abatement, it's just one abatement, one property that needs to be corrected for the tax roll.
We have a motion.
Motion to approve the abatement of $1,345.90.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Next, we have recreation. First on the agenda is the discussion and action regarding Burrs Hill Park structures.
So I have a quick PowerPoint if the council doesn't mind. This copy is in front of you as well, just so that you know.
What are we doing?
I have a
Going over
quick presentation to go over I did a summary of the charrette.
Cut you. Is this separate? That's what we're right now.
Yes, that's separate.
Why don't we do that while they wait?
Okay, let's go down to number 2 from recreation. Permission to overspend recreation director wages account.
Yes, so this is so that I can finish out the year. If the money would be coming out of the supervisor salaries.
Okay, so this is for whose salary is this? Yours?
Yes.
Ms. Mishu, the department head takes care of their own salary within their own budget?
Yes.
I never realized that.
Yep. And then I sign off on the overspend request before it comes to the council.
I always thought that came from you, and then you were dealing with the budget. Interesting.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, back to the presentation.
Okay. So this is just a recap of the design charrette that was held last week at Kickmute Middle School. Just to give a very quick project recap, you've probably all heard this already. The timeline of this project for the Burrs Hill improvements, the original project grant application was filed in 2016. That application was not a successful application. In 2018, the full needs assessment was performed by the Recreation Department. And that needs assessment identified at that time $1.17 million in improvements that were proposed for Burrs Hill Park. In 2019, we submitted a revised project grant application to DEM and were awarded $400,000 towards this project. The cash match that was required was funded in fiscal year 2021, which was part of the appropriations process in 2020. As part of the grant application, the project is to include a new activity center, which in the application was described as a 1,440 square foot building, playground equipment, a pedestrian path, and new overhead lighting within the park area. So the charrette goals were to look at 4 areas. Those areas were design, budget, location, and amenities. The format of the charrette, we had 32 people attend. It was an open format where all perspectives were welcome. There were no topics that were off limits and no perspective that was off limits. And the result, we got more than 200 unique comments and suggestions through the process. The themes for current projects, but we also received some recommendations for longer term planning within the park and the surrounding area. So the first subject was budget. This was the one where it was kind of the least creative section because the budget, what we have on hand is what it is. So there were two major themes. One of the themes was to phase the project, which is to take the money we have now and do work with it currently, but then to also prioritize additional work for future grant writing and future budgeting. So not just looking at what we can do today, but also making sure that we keep future planning in mind. And then there was another faction of those present who preferred not to spend any budget and to return the grant. Location. So the limitations that we have on the project, our goals as the town was to minimize ground disturbance, both through construction and utility installation, to avoid the flood zone and to provide safe access for the campers. To summarize the comments, and there were many comments, preferred locations included areas near the band shell. There was a suggestion that the town should consider purchasing the Food Mart property at 747 Main Street. There were a lot of comments about converting or expanding the existing structures on the property. There were comments regarding making better use of existing space. And then there were people who preferred no new structures or buildings at all. For the amenities, our limitations, as stated in the grant, was to provide ADA compliant bathrooms, storage, office space, and concessions for the campers. Comments included incorporate security cameras and speaker system into the plans, keep and renovate the existing bathrooms that exist down near the beach area, eliminate the office space and kitchen area, improve drinking water access, and there was some specific comments about eliminating the use of single-use plastics and having drinking water access without the use of water bottles. Expand the existing storage areas, provide office and first aid areas, include lockers, and there were some people who preferred no new amenities at all at the park area. For design, our limitations, according to the grant that we have received, is that the structure can be no larger than 1,440 square feet. Must be ADA compliant, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we had been looking at temporary structures because they create more flexibility and they don't require a full foundation. Comments that we received, some people preferred a mobile structure for a seasonal use. And just this season, for the facilities would be approximately May through October. A facility that's resistant to vandalism and weather, and there was a strong preference not to create hiding spaces or places where people might be able to get into trouble out of the view of the public. There was a preference to renovate existing structures on the property. And kind of the overarching theme that we heard from a lot of people was the need to create a more aesthetically pleasing appearance. Some of the suggestions included looking at the historical context of the area, giving a more cottage-like appearance to structures, using products like hardy board, which I spelled wrong, sorry, cedar shingles, clapboards, and shiplap, instituting the use of gable or peaked roofs, awnings and overhangs, splitting the larger building into multiple smaller buildings. One of the comments was no urban trash cans. I thought that was kind of interesting, referring to the design that was presented at one point. And then several people pointed to the structure at Janetto Field as something that we should look at as a guideline. There were some suggestions that the existing porta-johns were fine and that we should continue using the porta-johns. And then again, there were some folks who thought that no new buildings would be a better solution. So in summary, definitely there are some residents who prefer no new structures, and there were some residents who actually would prefer a reduction in the existing amenities. So they are not pleased with the existing conditions and they would prefer to see less use of the park. But for those who are not opposed to the improvements, the major themes included a strong desire to improve the appearance of the new structures through reduced massing, through use of natural materials, through creations of shade, through overhangs and awnings, and incorporations of a roof line. So basically to create a more pleasing structure or structures that fit better with the community and the surrounding neighborhood. There was a strong desire to prioritize the preservation of the existing restroom structure through renovation and reuse. And I would think that's an excellent point. And I don't think that we need to make those two things mutually exclusive. I think we certainly could look at the new structure and we could also look at renovating the existing structure. We would have to work with the building official and to explore what the ADA requirements are for that structure and to see what we could renovate and what that cost would be. There was a strong desire to prioritize safety and to improve security within the park, incorporating cameras and making sure that the facility remains safe and doesn't create hardships for the neighbors. And one of the main goals that we took away from the process was that we need to improve communications regarding program goals and needs. I think a lot of the goals that we had for the program were not adequately communicated, and we thought that people understood what we were looking for, and it turned out that we really didn't. And when we spoke to people and we explained, what for example, what the food area would be, I think there was a misunderstanding that people thought that this would be something that would be an attraction for the beachgoers, that would be creating concessions for people to go every day, someone to go down there, have a lunch and that kind of thing. And really what the goal of the program was to create concession area for the campers so that the lunch program can be run out of the facility and that we can maintain the proper temperatures and the proper food holding procedures for the lunch program for the campers. So I think that there was, in the future, we've learned a lot of lessons about how to explain ourselves better and not to make assumptions that people know right off the bat what we're talking about if we haven't told them. So next steps, what I would like to do is ask the council's permission to proceed with looking at revising the plans. I'll pass these along as well. That's just something to look at from Addispace with some design concepts that they provided based on some of the feedback. We've only had a few days since the charrette, so we haven't had a lot of time to fully develop anything. So I'd just like the council's endorsement to move forward and look at how we can incorporate this public comment into the proposal to bring back to the council for a final approval.
So would the, Mr. Hanley, if I could, would these spaces, these buildings be permanent, or would they be stored at the town yard? Or is that part of the discussion?
So that's part of the discussion. If we went with Addispace, what you have in front of you are different concepts for temporary structures that could be removed. There's also, there are options. We could build a building down there, but I think we need a little bit more time to research what our options are and to come back to the council with some more fully developed ideas. It seems like the appearance is of primary importance. I think people are most concerned with the appearance and how that would impact the neighborhood and the neighborhood character.
If I could, I think appearance, because I was there and I worked with a couple of different groups, and appearance was definitely high on the list, but it was also massing. Massing was a huge problem for a lot of people, where the plan that was presented had massed all these units together, and it creates just a blockage of the sight lines, and it feels like it overwhelms the area. So those were two issues that I recognized right away from what people were discussing.
I heard that too. Massing, as well as having structures that were, the fear of vandalism to the structures and the safety concerns and with the type of activity that's going on down at Burrs Hill Park. I mean, that got hammered through. I kind of went around and worked with a couple of the different groups, and that was a consistent message, is just like the safety and the level of just really unsafe activity that's going on down there. And there was also a consistent message of like, is it possible to have bathrooms and or whatever these structures ultimately are be stored elsewhere over the non-use season. So after October, and then they would be stored someplace off-site so that they would not be the target of vandalism and destruction and be brought back. I think people are really just deeply concerned with making this investment and providing these amenities that we deserve and that we should have and that the campers need and the community wants, and then just having it be, destroyed and disregarded. So having that element of mobility is really, I think, important to consider.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion to instruct the town manager to research and come back with some new proposals.
If I could on that, are you looking for some direction specific?
I think.
Because that was a pretty broad motion. I wouldn't mind having you look at specifically the renovation and remodeling of the existing bathrooms. Next, I would like to have you specifically look at a newly designed storage or mixed-use building that's temporary, portable. And then third, I would also have the same request on the restroom being portable with a New England design. Instead of, I appreciate what they sent us here, but still, I'm looking at a potential home gym. I'm looking at a potential, backyard office. I think, they need to draw us a picture of what they're proposing there and how it fits into the New England charm, which used to be asbestos siding, but no longer are we looking at that as New England charm. That's my specific request for you.
So is that a motion?
That is my motion.
We have a motion.
Yeah, and also a little more discussion. The idea of concession that would be that structure that would provide refrigeration and heating opportunity for the food to be served to the campers. If that could be up, by the little picnic area at the far side near the bike path and have a separate structure. One of these might be appropriate, one of these out of space might be appropriate for that there, away from, the lower area where it's blocking sightline to the water and whatnot. And it would be on the bike path and maybe could be easily removed too, not off season, but, turning that into a little additional area out there would make sense. So
I think one of the challenges is the utility connections in the upper area, but certainly we can look.
Service next to the tennis courts and the basketball courts?
Water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
Water.
They
Okay.
used to have a bubble there. They used to water the fields there. Is that line still there?
Geez, that line. Broken as hell, yeah.
So it would need electricity, obviously, for cooling,
It's there.
which is there, and it would need, how much water would need to be there? Like,
You would have to have a dish, a sink.
Yeah, water line.
Yeah,
okay,
we can look at it. Yeah.
All right, I think they understand what we're looking for. We have a motion. Carrie, did you second that?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda, we have the fire chief. Discussion and action regarding the brush truck, the infamous brush truck.
What's a brush truck?
Yeah.
Just looking to ratify a previous request for the brush truck. Originally, you got approved for a purchase from another supplier. After fine tuning that request, it some numbers changed that no longer fit our needs. So I've moved on to purchasing from Paul Massey Chevrolet, who has a truck that does fit all of our specs.
Could you just refresh our memory or mine specifically as to what exactly is a brush truck?
It's a utility, like a pickup truck with a utility body on the back, and we'll put our current brush unit that's in our pickup truck now in the back of that new truck. So it's just another vehicle to make our brush truck, replacing the vehicle.
Brush being like.
Brush fires, brush fire.
Grass
truck,
fires.
A small brush fire truck, yes.
There's key word. Thank you.
Chief, I had just seemed a little odd the way they described the quote summary. Vehicle needing a roof, a front end, a side, a rear. I mean, does that come with it?
Say that again?
The description of the quote summary where the description is the vehicle needs a roof, a front end, a side, a rear console area. It's on page 5.
An enclosed vehicle.
Chief, I think it's the Island Tech part of the quote.
Oh, okay, all right.
Isn't
That's the upfit of all the lights and the radios. I'm sorry, I didn't know you had that page.
Thank you. So it's lighting.
It's the whole truck.
Yes, the whole truck. Okay. That's the upfit after we get it lighted and radios.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion for the brush truck?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request by the fire chief to purchase the brush truck.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. I have a question, Chief. What did we use the old brush truck for? We repurposed it for something else. What did we do?
We still have the pickup. It's in the back of a pickup truck. We will keep that pickup as our snowplow utility truck.
So when,
For that,
because I remember we had a brush truck and then some use came to play that we needed to use that for something.
is that
And
one
then,
out to sewer department possibly back?
I don't know. I thought you
I'm
knew.
not sure.
All right, so, but we're not doubling up. Oh, we're replacing. Yeah, I think we did a dual use on something in the past. All right, thanks.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, planning and community development, review of affordable housing and broadband surveys.
Right, so you previously had approved ARPA funding for us to conduct both a survey for affordable housing and broadband. We're trying to be as transparent as we can to meet the Treasury requirements. The affordable housing survey, have 100 pages of results. I mean, I'm very encouraged by what we've gotten, and we're working with Housing Works to summarize that information. On the broadband, we've had, as of 2 weeks ago, about 300 respondents, but working with the school district, we're going to get some more surveys out. So this is all valuable information. The infrastructure bill has provisions for broadband funding. We're working with the state and communities in Aquidneck Island, East Bay to look at this. So I'm very encouraged by where we're going with all this. So I just, again, to make sure that we're transparent to meet the Treasury requirements in terms of communicating with you, that's what this is.
You've done that.
I think it just did. I hope.
Thank you.
And second, we have discussion and action.
So you had asked us,
Yep.
you gave us permission to look at entering into an option agreement for this property adjacent to Bristol County Water. We did look at that. We had some wetlands inventory done. It does not look like this property is going to be useful for us. And I would like to terminate the option agreement that you authorized us to enter into. The good news is I think we have good communication between the town and Bristol County Water for potential other compromises and land acquisition, but there's no value for us moving forward right now on this property acquisition. So I would like you to authorize me to terminate the option agreement.
We have a motion to terminate the agreement.
Discussion
Absolutely.
prior to the motion. I'll second the motion. My discussion's on the
Somebody's
motion.
got it first.
So moved on the motion.
I'll make the motion. All right, Steve,
Yeah,
thank you.
so
And
moved on
for
the motion.
discussion, Mr. DeSisto, is it possible for us to discuss openly the potential use of that parcel?
There's really no value to us for that parcel. I mean, the intent was that we would acquire that parcel and swap that with Bristol County Water. If that parcel is deemed to be too much of a wetland, there's no value to swap that parcel. There are opportunities to have other discussions with Bristol County Water, but there's no value for us to acquire that parcel.
There's not enough land to do what we wanted to, buildable land to do what we wanted to do.
I just wanted to make sure that we had crossed all our, dotted our i's.
I think we have. I mean, we were never going to use that parcel for our benefit. It was all to benefit Bristol County Water, to have them swap something with us.
I guess where I'm going is I'm thinking of potential future expansion, future capabilities, so this is just a dead parcel. Nobody can do anything with it.
We will advise the property owner that we don't want to exercise the option. They might come back to us and offer us some compromise, and we can consider that. But for our purposes, we needed access from two different points. The wetlands prevent that.
Right. I guess my concern.
If they wanted to give it to us as a park or a tax deduction, we'll take it.
Duly noted. But secondly is when we say no to this, we're done with it. And I'm just making sure that we've looked at any other possible use of, there's land is a shortage and there usually isn't an opportunity to get any. And since we're in a position to be first rights of refusal on this, or actually I'm just making sure.
So we can always come back. I think we should cancel this and we can always come back at them with, maybe in a year or two when they maybe decide that they can't sell it. We might be able
We're
to get it
going to
cheaper.
provide them with the report that we got from our engineers
Yeah, there's
that
not
say
much
there
that
are
can happen.
limitations to what can be done.
Yeah.
All right, I just know once we're done, once it's not at the table, we're not at the table. All right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and last on the agenda is the building official, and I think I may be recusing myself on this matter as well.
With that being said, I gotta call them to work.
Are you serious?
Jeez.
All right.
Yep.
That being said,
Floor is yours.
I got called into work.
Yeah.
Cover the rest of the meeting. Here is my refusal form, because I think I know it's coming.
So, per Rhode Island Building Code and state law, we have to appoint an alternate building official. In my absence or any controversial issue that I may have, this alternate building official will step in. So it's very tough to find a building official, a certified building official right now. Several cities and towns don't have building officials. Other cities and towns will use the neighboring official, and also their plumbing and mechanical and electrical inspectors. Unfortunately for us, our plumbing and mechanical inspector and electrical inspector cover Barrington, and Bristol, prime example, getting called in the middle of the night. Bristol's building official doesn't live close, and I don't want to have our police or fire having to wait lengthy periods of time for a building official to come in. So we were fortunate enough that Bill Hanley, who was the former building official for the town of Warren, building official for 27 years and retired from Newport, basically stepped forward to take this position, be appointed this evening. Lives right on the line in Bristol, and has actually been made himself very available for us.
You mean our former building official?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it a per diem thing? So he gets called in, he gets compensated. Is there a minimum?
There's no minimum, so it would be as
Hour
needed.
by hour?
And then we also would have the option if we have a major project where there's additional plan review services that are needed, at Matt's discretion, we could ask him to assist with that plan review as well.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Any other discussion? Is
So-
there a second?
So there is a motion to appoint Bill Hanley as the alternate building official.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Believe we're in adjournment.
No.
Yeah, well, we need to adjourn this meeting though first, right? Oh, we just go right, okay. That's all.
Bob, you gonna be there?
We staying here? We gonna stay? Thank you. Yep. Right, we're back in open session.
Yes.
Okay. We've sealed the missions. Yeah, the vote. All in favor? Aye. Yep. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
For litigation.
All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion to adjourn. We're done. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you on the 19th.